Did you know that the number one marketing tool for any private practice is its website? And if you don't have a website or don't have a good website, you're going to be missing out on some referrals. Your web design and your branding is so important in being able to convey the message that you want to convey to your potential clients. And if you need a website or need to just improve your website, I would encourage you to check out Brighter Vision. Brighter Vision is the premier web design and branding company for therapists. And right now, Brighter Vision is having a huge sale through the month of January 2019. You can get their web design services and branding help at just $49 a month. That's a $220 savings over a year's time. So check them out today, and you can do that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision and use the coupon code Gordon, and you can get your first month free. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 63 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer, and I'm so glad you've joined me for the podcast. It's hard to believe we're already into 2019, and so this is the second episode for 2019, and it's just amazing that the time has gone by like it has. It just seemed like, we were in the throes of the holiday, and it just went by so fast. And I am just so excited for the new year to start and just all the exciting things that are coming down the pike. I've just, this week, I've been really busy with getting my own private practice, making the transition to a new electronic health record system, and just getting familiar with that and getting all of the things in place and systems, and from our intake coordinator to our newer therapist, and getting everything situated for the for people to register online for appointments and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just been fun stuff. I know for some people that's just kind of drudgery stuff, but I'm one of those kind of tech geeks and just kind of get into that stuff. But anyway, it's been a fun journey so far, and I'm enjoying the ride. And I'm real thankful to the folks at Therapy Notes and being able to partner with them, not only in my practice, but also with the Practice of Therapy, and them being another sponsor for this coming year. The other folks that I've been able to partner with are Practice Solutions and Jeremy Zug and his team, and they've been just a big help in helping me turn things around with our billing and getting on track with those systems. So lots of neat stuff just in my own private practice and the things that we're doing here. In terms of the Practice of Therapy, again, I've just been blown away by the growth over this past year and all the exciting stuff that we've got coming down the pike. We've got some great podcast guests lined up in the future. And also I've got this Money Matters course that's going to be coming out this month. And you can go check that out over at practiceoftherapy.com/finance course. And as a way of just kind of getting your foot in the door with that, I've got a free financial analysis guide that you can download and sign up to be one of the first people to receive notification of the Money Matters course when it's ready. And in that course, I'm just going over all the financial side of private practice and really talking about the ins and outs and things that people need to know about the financial side of being in private practice. So I'm excited to have that come up. I've been doing like I've mentioned before, been doing a lot of research and pulling a lot of resources together and interviewing some special people for that course. And so Yeah, I'm excited about that coming down the pike. The other thing too is another one of my sponsors, Brighter Vision, and as you heard before the intro of the podcast, they've got a huge sale going on right now. So take advantage of that if you don't have a website or your website's not performing like it should. That's just a great resource. And I only partner with people that I trust and know are good. And so I know that all three of the people I've got sponsoring this year, Practice Solutions, Therapy Notes, and Brighter Vision are good folks. And so I recommend them all three of those to you. And you can find more out about them on our resources page over at practiceoftherapy.com. So my guest for today's podcast episode is Ellie Vargas, and I'm so excited to introduce Ellie to you. Ellie is kind of private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm so glad that she has joined me today for the podcast. Ellie is an LCSW, and she is also another therapist that has moved into the immigration evaluations niche, and it's a timely thing, I think, with not only the political climate that we're in right now, but also just that need is out there. And so I'm looking forward to you hearing from Ellie and listening to what she has to say about diversifying your income streams, but also diversifying your practice and moving into other niches that maybe aren't exactly traditional therapy services, but ancillary services or auxiliary services that you can offer in your private practice. So without further ado, here is Ellie Vargas. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm so thrilled to have with me today as a guest Ellie Vargas. And Ellie and I we just recently met online, and she reached out to me because she was interested in kind of wanting to tell her story about some of the things that she's doing. But Ellie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Gordon. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, so Ellie is an LCSW and is a trauma-informed psychotherapist in Berkeley, California. And you can find her at www.ellievargastherapy.com. And we'll be sure and put that link in the show notes, where she specializes in helping individuals become more present, authentic, and connected in their relationships, even after childhood relational trauma. And Ellie also founded and runs the Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations, and that can be found at www.bacie.org. And she and her team conduct psychological evaluations and write reports for legal immigration cases. So thanks, Ellie, and I'm glad you're here.
Like I said, I'm glad to be here too.
Yeah, so
excited to talk to you.
Yes, and I think it's interesting because this topic has come up before. I know a few podcast episodes back, I had also my friend Cecilia Brasino, and I know I tried to get you guys to connect because I know you're working in kind of a similar niches, or some people like to say niches, but being from the South, I just say niche. But anyway, why don't you tell folks, Ellie, a little bit about your private practice journey and how you've landed where you've landed?
Absolutely. So I think like a lot of new practitioners started out in agency work and did that for several years and decided I wanted to try my hand at private practice. But had to do it in a very kind of strategic and thoughtful way, right? I don't come from a situation where I can take a lot of financial risk. I had kids at home and bills to pay and benefits to cover. And so my journey has really been bit by bit. I started, it's probably 6 years ago now, with opening up just one evening a week to see clients. So on top of a full-time agency job, just one evening a week, got that full, negotiated little by little to cut back a little bit of time at the agency, add a little bit of time at my practice over the course of several years.
Right.
And part of that was experimenting. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. I wasn't sure it was going to work for me. Being in the Bay Area, you could throw a rock and hit a therapist. It's a pretty saturated market out here. So I took it on as an experiment and found that I really liked it and I really took to it. So let's see. So in the midst of all of this, I had children. And there's a kind of scary thing that happens when you take time off to have kids as a woman. And I'm sure the same is true for men who take time off for paternity leaves. There's this like breakdown in your flow of your practice, right? Right. And you might lose some clients, hopefully some stick around. But when I took time off after my second child, I remember thinking to myself, okay, so I now have 2 kids, right? Got that many more expenses. And was nervous about that. Right? Sure. And I had done a couple of immigration evaluations, like as favors, basically for friends, up until that point, and had gotten some great mentoring from some immigration attorneys about how to do it and what needed to be covered and how to format a report. And it kind of clicked to me when I was on maternity leave, gearing up to come back, that yes, I want to do therapy and I love therapy and I'm good at it and it's an important part of what I do. And there's this other offer that I'm also good at. It's interesting. It's different than therapy. And it's a way that I can maybe kind of fill in my practice while I'm returning and building a private pay psychotherapy practice, which, as we all know, takes time. Right. And so it was a really nice marriage for me of both kind of like bringing together skills. So I'm a bilingual therapist as well. So being able to offer this service to monolingual Spanish-speaking folks who need these evaluations for their legal immigration cases. Interesting work for me. It kind of pulls on a different skill set, and allowed me to kind of get my schedule full while at the same time actively building a psychotherapy practice and trying to sustain a psychotherapy practice. Yeah. So I don't know, it was a nice coming together of those two offers that I began to develop. Right.
Yeah, and what I love about that in hearing your story is the fact that you did what a lot of people do, myself included, is you made the transition before you just kind of quit your full-time job. And then when you went on maternity leave, life changed, obviously, as it does. And then what you did is you just looked at bringing in other streams of income, diversifying your income streams, besides just trading. I guess for immigration evaluations, you are trading your time for money, but it's more than that, and that you probably get maybe a little bit better return on your investment for that time than doing just traditional therapy. And I think that's a really smart way to do things. I know when I first started into private practice, I was still working. I had kind of a half-time job or a part-time job working in Appalachian ministries, and so that was a kind of my steady paycheck. Wasn't a huge paycheck, but it took the pressure off of what it takes to build a practice and being able to build up that client base. So it's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be, especially in an area like the Bay Area, where there is a lot of competition, and the cost of living here is so high.
Right.
It building a practice takes time, and you plant a lot of seeds, but there's no quick path to filling up a private fee practice, at least that I've found.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, and again, I think I do not have the situation where I've got a partner who can financially float the family while I'm trying to figure it out and build. So yeah, I mean, it pushed me to be creative, and it pushed me to find a way to make it work. And,
Right.
and I'm grateful for that. And I feel like I landed in something that I probably wouldn't have. I certainly years ago would not have thought, oh, this is kind of what I think my business model will look like moving forward. But even as my therapy practice grew, and some of those kind of seeds came to fruition, so to speak, and I'm getting more regular referrals, I really realized I love doing these evaluations.
Right.
I love having that kind of diversity in my work week, where it's just, like I said, it pulls on a different part of my clinical self, and just the skill set that it requires. So I've maintained it. It wasn't just a stopgap measure. It's something that I've actively chosen to maintain as an offer in my business model. And as that part of my business continued to grow, and I just could not accommodate all of the referrals, then I built out about a year ago the Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations. And now I've got 5 clinicians around the Bay Area who take referrals through their own private practices under my business. So there's a tremendous demand also for this kind of work.
Right. So it's, in many ways, you've really kind of created in a way, a very unique niche group practice that has helped you even kind of create some passive income for you in terms of being able to be the one that's kind of got the infrastructure in place. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with the model, and just kind of what you've learned along the way as you've created this thing.
Yeah, it's been another big experiment. I've never done anything like this before.
Right.
I did not go to business school. It's been a really interesting journey. So like I said, it was a factor of meeting a crossroads of like, I have so many referrals, which is a good problem to have. I'm booking, 6-8 weeks out. And I said to myself, look, like, this isn't fair. These folks need these evaluations. They don't want to wait. So I'm at a crossroads of either like saying, sorry, I can't take it, or finding other colleagues to refer to, and potentially giving up these relationships with law firms that I've worked really hard to create, or finding a way to accommodate the demand. And so that's kind of just how the seed got planted in my mind of creating a group practice. It's a remote group practice. So we all practice in our own offices. I have a assistant who does all the scheduling, who's virtual. She works from home. And, started with one clinician who did, a few reports here and there. And then again, as the demand grew and I started doing more advertising and marketing locally to immigration attorneys, it was, a bit of chicken and egg moments of like, when is the right time to add another clinician? Will I be able to fill that clinician's availability versus, kind of build it and they will come, or kind of overflow with referrals and then wait till the right moment. So it's been, I don't know that I've fully figured it out, but it's a trial and error. And it's what I like about the business model is that a couple of things. One is that it's something of a training institute, right? So a lot of clinicians have never done, we've all done psychosocial evaluations, right? but a lot of us have never written a report that's going to be used in a legal setting. Right. And so a lot of clinicians that I would talk to had a lot of interest, especially given kind of current political climate. It's like, is there anything I can do to help here? So there's a lot of interest. And so part of what works in the model is that I provide a lot of training and oversight and kind of get them up and going. And that's great for the clinicians. On the other hand, they're doing it for, we're kind of sharing the fee, right? So they're getting paid slightly less than they would if they were doing it on their own, but they don't have to hustle for the business. I've got a steady stream of referrals, and they're getting trained in this, in being able to offer this service, and do it in a really thorough, highly ethical, and my standards are really high about how these reports come out, because these immigrant clients have one shot at this, right? Right. They've got one shot to apply for asylum and they get it or they don't, or they've got one shot to apply for a U visa, for example, and they get it or they don't. And my understanding from these attorneys is that these psychological evaluations are a big piece of evidence in whether their petitions are approved or not. Right. So I feel very strongly that they be done well.
Right. Right. Well, it's wonderful advocacy work. I know it's just like you said, the political climate right now, and it's I know just for most of us in this field, we also have a big heart and a lot of compassion for people that are struggling in different ways. Yeah. So.
I just want to add to that, Gordon, because I think it's really important, and I talk about this with my clinicians all the time. There is a aspect of this that is advocacy, but it's so important to separate clinical assessment from wanting to advocate or wanting to help, right? It's super important that these be objective clinical evaluation. Right. Because otherwise, they're meaningless, right? And yes, I think people who are drawn to this do want to help and want to use our skills and want to use our licenses to help. But we do have to have a bit of a separation between being able to be objective and do a thorough, ethical, clinical assessment that is honest, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So what have you, maybe this is kind of a little bit of a, well, let me thinking out loud here as I usually do. So what are some lessons you've learned, or just kind of things that you've learned about building a practice like you've built it? Are there things that you look back now and say, okay, well, I wish I would have done it this way, or I wish I had known this or that as you built your practice?
I guess in honesty, I don't really think that way, Gordon. Okay. I, especially doing things I do not come from a family of entrepreneurs. This is everyone in my life is what in the world? You're going to leave your salaried, benefited position, right? Which I did eventually, right? And so it's been, there's something very scary about that. And what's helped me, especially in building this group practice, this Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations, is I feel like I've got a good idea. I don't totally know what I'm doing. That's okay. Right? And I'm going to learn, and I'm going to be transparent with, for sure, the clinicians that are working for me. This is going to be a collaboration. I want feedback. This is a learning process for all of us. And so I don't know that I would say, in hindsight, man, I wish a year ago I knew what I know now, because I feel like it has helped being open to the process. I think has helped evolve my business to where it needed to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that the thing that's great about this is that it sounds like what you've been able to do, Ellie, is not get petrified by perfection. In other words, you've taken the leap, and that is huge, because you're right. We're gonna we can't get too hung up on worrying about the mistakes we might make along the way. And I think too, just the fact that you've been very candid with your staff about, and just open with them, just around, okay, we're learning as we go here. It's kind of like we're gonna build the airplane as we fly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know another way to do it.
Yeah,
to be honest,
right.
Because I think the rigidity of feeling like it all needs to be figured out first, that aspect of perfectionism, like do you ever get off the ground? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been the process that it's needed to be to get me to where I am.
Right.
And that feels really, really okay to me.
Yeah. So if there's other folks that are out there that are maybe in a similar place that you were in when you first started to think about doing this expansion of services, and really just thinking out, in a way, it's thinking outside the box. What are some tips maybe that you would give them around thinking about expanding a practice and doing some unconventional things that are maybe just a little bit on the fringes of doing traditional therapy?
I would say thinking about the skills that we already have, right? So in my case, like, I know how to do a thorough psychosocial evaluation. I already know how to do that. So combining what we already know how to do with ways that maybe are like just outside the boundaries of what we consider like a psychotherapy practice. So for example, these evaluations, it's what we already do, but offered in a slightly different way.
Right.
And then ideally matching that up with a gap in services, right? Or a demand that you see out there in the world. And so, I mean, if anyone listening to this podcast, like, is interested in, like, is this something I could do? What I'm kind of offering to folks at your podcast is I'm going to kind of make a special page. So at my Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations website, so BACIE.org/the practice of therapy, they can go there, and there's going to be a free download available, which is basically like the rubrics that I use for these evaluations. It's not the same as a training, right? But it gives people like a skeleton idea of like, this is what it takes. This is what goes into it. This is what a report entails and includes. And then I'm working on putting together kind of a roundup. There's trainings popping up, like your friend Cecilia. There's trainings popping up all over the country. So I'm working on putting together a roundup of trainings around the country for people who are interested in potentially like building this into their business model. Because I really think it's a great way to diversify an income stream, which, I don't know, I'm paranoid. I feel like another recession is coming. Right? So the more diversified we can be, the better.
Right.
Plus, it's you hone your diagnostic skills really, really well. If you like writing, it's a way to really get good at synthesizing clinical information. So anyways, I'm happy to offer that to folks to take a look and see if it's something they want more information about. Yeah,
that's great. That's very, very generous. And again, we'll have links in the show notes to those resources. Yeah. So that's I'm just really intrigued by that, because all of this is outside the box kind of way of thinking about things. And I really love the fact that you're thinking about, ways to diversify your income, because you're exactly right. If we just stick to that one model of trading our time and knowledge for therapy sessions, it really limits us. And the truth of the matter is you'll eventually reach kind of this glass ceiling where there's only so many clients you can see in a week. There's only so many days you can devote to sessions. And so having these other streams of income is just so crucial to having a successful practice. And just in talking with people across the country, the most successful practices are those that tend to diversify their income. They that coming up with new ways, new business models, new ways to go at things is just so important. So, yeah.
The other thing that I really love about this offer, which is personal, but I think probably resonates with other people, as opposed to, I don't know, at least in the Bay Area, most of my therapy clients have had therapy before. They're pretty versed in therapy. It's kind of in our culture here in this area. Mm-hmm. And what I'm finding is that the immigrant clients that come for these evaluations, for the most part, have never had any kind of connection with any mental health, anything in their life.
Right.
And for me, there's this really lovely opportunity to, yes, do a thorough clinical assessment, what's needed for the report, but also be that person's first experience, destigmatize whatever symptoms they are having. God, it makes so much sense that you're feeling this way or that you're having a hard time sleeping. Look at what you've been through, and normalizing mental health reactions and symptoms and providing hope, right? And that there is treatment and that it's not scary and we're not quacks and, we're compassionate. And so as I'm sitting here talking to you about it, I'm realizing there are so many layers to this offer for me personally, and maybe for others that are fulfilling, diversifying for sure, because it's both diversifying income, but also diversifying what I'm doing in a given day, which is also really nice. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Well, Ellie, this is just such great information, and I think it's just so inspiring, and I think timely that we're doing this, not only during the political climate that we're in right now, but also the fact that it's the first of the year and people are thinking about, goals and plans and ways to go at this whole private practice journey and figure out ways to do it successfully and also in a meaningful way. And that's Absolutely. The other thing that I hear with this is that this is very meaningful work for you, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Well, it's whenever I talk about it, it really comes home to me how much I've just really loved this offer that I have in my business model.
Right.
It lights me up in a way that's different than psychotherapy.
Right. Yeah. Well, great.
I'm really glad to be able to be here and talk with you about it.
Yes.
Thanks for giving me a chance.
So Ellie, why don't you tell folks again how they can get in touch with you and a little bit about your information? And like I said, we'll include this in the show notes. So
yeah. Well, because I have two different offers. I have two different websites. So my psychotherapy website is ellievargastherapy.com, and my immigration evaluation business is the Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations, and the website is the acronym, so BACIE.org. And so if you go to BACIE.org/the practice of therapy, there will be a free downloadable gimme, which will be basically the rubrics for the 5 different immigration evaluation types that usually require psychological evaluations.
Okay.
And I'm happy to share that. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to reach out and talk more about it, feel free. I love talking about it.
Yeah. Great. Well, Ellie, thanks again for being on the podcast today. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and so glad we connected, and so glad to make this new friendship, and best of luck for you and your journey. And hopefully we'll get you back on here to check in with you later and see how things are going.
Sure, would love to. Yeah. Right. Hope it's a great year for you too.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, folks, I hope this has been an inspiration to you. I'm just so grateful to Ellie for joining me on the podcast today. You know, that she really hit on some key things that I think are so important to remember as you grow your practice and as you really get to a place where you need to kind of diversify or spread your wings, so to speak. I think it's always a good idea to look at services that you can offer that maybe are outside the norm in terms of traditional therapy services, and the immigration evaluations as one of those. And I think, too, as we talked about, this really comes at a timely really in a very timely way, just considering all that's going on, at least here in the United States, just around issues around immigration and really across the world. I mean, it's just it's really something that's on the radar screen, and it's certainly a needed service. And so it's also about, hopefully you've gotten some ideas about other ways to think outside the box in terms of being able to offer those services that are, just beyond just traditional therapy services. So be sure and go over and check out Ellie's information. And again, check her out at the Bay Area Center for Immigration Evaluations. Again, the links to that are in the show notes. And I would commend all of that to you because it's some great stuff. And also be sure and check out our sponsor for today, Brighter Vision. As I mentioned at the beginning, they've got a huge sale going on, and really now is the time to jump on this great offer that they're giving of just $49 a month to help you design and build a website that's going to represent who you are. And it's they make absolutely beautiful websites, and I can highly recommend them. And with this sale that's going on, it'll save you $220 over a year's time, which is a pretty huge savings. So go check them out. And you can do that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision. So again, folks, thanks for joining me for the podcast today. And do take the time to go over and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Intune Radio. I think I've covered most of them that we're on now, and there's going to be more of those to come, which is, again, just exciting stuff coming in the future. And be sure to tune in with us again next week for the Practice of Therapy podcast. Take care, folks, and have a great rest of your week or weekend. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.